Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan. This is probably a sad Monday morning for a lot of people, Adam, as the hangover from last night's Sixer loss is gonna linger. In my opinion, probably as long as the Eagles 4-11-1 season did. It's gonna get ugly, but hopefully you and I can bring everybody back onto the Eagles bandwagon because, the news, there hasn't been a whole lot of news, and we can get everybody excited about what's to come with this episode because we're going to start our what we like to call our too early 53-man roster projection. We'll do the offense in this episode, defense in next one. And be fair to us because some people start to do their too early 53-man roster projection in like May, right? Or even April. We try to wait until the Eagles, we think, have like at least 90% of their 98% of their signings done. Now, we've talked about cornerback and maybe some other positions that they'll probably address. But if we waited any longer, we'd be in training camp and on to the next one. So we'll do that today.
Yeah, no doubt. This is going to be a fun show because I know people love these type of projection shows and roster moves and what do we think is going to happen. Well, we're going to give it out here. We're going to tell you what we think the early word is.
Right.
We've got some information from OTAs we've heard and which we'll mix in here. And I'm telling you, folks, there's no question. We've been saying this for several weeks. There are a lot of backup jobs open. There's a lot of competition. Some of these backup jobs are very important because there's so many more young players now on this football team. They're getting younger, which is a good thing. So we'll get through that.
We will. So just to recap for our newer listeners, because we seem to compile a few every episode, every week, every month. We just completed in our last podcast a whole series previewing every position. Podcast by podcast, we broke it down from quarterback, running back, offensive line / tight end, and then we went to defensive line, linebacker, and then last one was secondary. So if you're looking for, because I know people have been hitting us up, like they'll have certain questions about a certain guy or a certain this, and you and I will respond sometimes. Look, we address that. If it's a tight end you got a question about, or a safety or a lineman, there was no stone unturned in our positional series. So just go to our podcast platforms, find the position, because every title basically tells you what position that we did, or the information box will, and listen to it, and we'll have you up to date on pretty much everything. Because I'm pretty sure there's a name we didn't forget. Like we pretty much went through every single person who's fighting for a spot.
Yeah, and we're not the Graylin Arnolds of the world, these number 6 corners. We're not going to cover them very much. Guys we think have a chance, like Michael Jacquet, we've talked about him. We've said he's a project. He would be better off in the practice squad. I don't know how many things more we could say about this kid. The guy played well for a half, and that's it. It's nothing. See, there's this narrative from the fans, like all of a sudden he's like this next great player or this next great developmental player. Could not be further from the truth. It's not the way that he played. He played well for a half.
Right.
He was put out there.
Yeah.
Was it against Dallas? Who was it against last year?
No, I think it was a Dallas game. He struggled. Maybe it would have been the game before Dallas. Okay. I forget exactly.
He did a nice job considering
he's new to the Dallas. It could have been Dallas. Yeah.
Okay. He's new to the cornerback position, but then he got exposed badly. So just folks, slow your roll on this kid. It's an interesting story. He's got length and he's got some athleticism. And he works hard. He's a pretty sharp kid from what we understand, but he's a major project. Again, he would be better off on a practice squad. The Eagles, the cornerback group is so poor opposite Slay. He has a legit shot to make it and maybe to dress every week. That's it.
Yeah. I think one of the things you mentioned, though, about Michael Jacquet that will make us talk about him a little bit more when the competition gets going, Adam, is that he has that, you just mentioned it, the size and the athleticism at that position that stands out pretty much over everybody else the Eagles have on their. We talk about how they have too many slot receivers, too many 5'8", 5'9" guys, 185, 190. And Michael is, I think, 6'1", 210, that's something like that. I mean, he's got good length, good athleticism, probably built like an Eric Rowe or maybe even a Rasul Douglas, but you hope that he can develop and be an NFL corner, but we're far from that. But yes,
he's about 200. He's actually about 200, but
which still makes him bigger than most of their guys.
It's good. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, you're right. He's got length and he's got traits that you look for. But he's got a long way to go. Again, if you have your druthers, he's not on the football team. He's on the practice squad. That's probably not going to happen. I'm sure he'll be on the team because they have nowhere else to go, as Richard Gere said one time in Officer and a Gentleman.
That's a good
So there you
throwback
go.
right there.
I figured that's one of my favorite lines of all time. But
yeah, definitely.
So anyway, yeah, that was our last show. As Geoff said, we covered corners and safeties. We also did our live stream where we answered a lot of questions.
Yeah, and someone again reached out to us on Twitter and asked us, I guess maybe they had heard our podcast where we went through linebackers and wanted to know a little bit more about Davion Taylor and his odds. And we said, you know what, we addressed that in our Ask ITB live stream. He was one of the guys we spent a little bit more time on during the live stream, just talking about, again, athleticism there, the ability to run, it's there, but the ability to process, to understand the position, your spatial awareness, all the things that'll have to happen for him to really bridge that gap, that remains to be seen. And he's kind of fighting a battle in that regard because the Eagles have made a lot of additions. So that was a good ask. Check out our Ask IDB live stream. I also liked it because some people asked us some off the beat type questions just about other things that don't always pertain to like Eagles and X's and O's. So that was a good Ask ITB live stream. Our next ITB that you will see on our YouTube channel this week, we will feature, and this is a pretty cool special guest we're going to have because of some recent events. We're going to have Les Bowen from the Philadelphia Daily News on with us. And if you haven't yet seen or heard, Les has accepted the buyout that I think some other Daily News and Inquirer writers like Ed Barkowitz and others have, and I can't believe it. Mark Narducci. I mean, my God, this guy's been a staple of high school sports for a long time and pro. But Les, to me, Adam, when I cannot think of the Eagles beat without Les Bowen on it. I mean, I know, I don't know. I've only lived in this area for like 20 years now, almost. But Les was always on the beat, and I know he covered hockey before the Eagles, and he's sticks out. He's got that Southern accent. He's from Charlotte, and he is without a doubt one of the best writers. He has a way with words that I found extraordinarily enviable. And I don't know if you saw my tweet, Adam, when he put it out. I said, when I first got on the beat, I would read everybody's work to measure myself against all of them. And when I would read Les, I would think I've got no shot to survive. I just can't write like Les Bowen. There were a couple of guys like, Bill Lyon, same thing. There are just some Rich Hoffman Sr., just guys who are just gifted with the ability to write with prose. Because, when we write sports, Adam, like the Eagles have such a massive media contingent that I don't want to say we're all writing the same things, but if a guy gets hurt or if there's a major impactful story, we're all going to write it from our own lens. But you
write it differently, though. You look at it from an insider's perspective.
Yes,
that's really kind of what separates.
I'm talking about earlier on, though, right? When I'm just not even an insider yet. But I would read Les, and I'd be like, I wrote the same topic, but you read mine, you read him, and I'm like kindergarten, and he's like, Professor Emeritus.
His candor, it just his sarcastic wit, caustic sometimes. It's just he's so funny. We'll talk to him about this. His press box one-liners are hilarious.
Well, I was there. We'll talk to him. But I was there when he really got under Andy Reid's skin. And
okay,
one of the famous quotes. I'm sure you've heard the quote, "Enjoy the win, Les." Right?
Boy. No, I don't know the story. We'll get into it.
We'll ask him about it.
Love traveling with him at the Combine, the countless dinners with he and Paul Domowitch at the Weber Grill. We'll have to talk about that story.
Definitely. Les is a good one, and he'll be good. He'll be good for the stories, and we'll also, because I think fans really get into this, Adam. They want to know. We get a lot asked about the industry, how we made it, what it's like, and we'll get into less about the changing, forces in the industry. That, as he wrote in his goodbye column, he was going to go one more year and then maybe retire next year. He decided to take the buyout now. We'll get into why and what he sees from our industry. We did this with Derek Gunn. When he was out at Comcast, and I thought that was a fantastic interview. So we'll get into it with Les, and then just also his opinion on this past Eagles offseason and what's to come for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I look forward to doing that. All right, like I said, we got two things. One, we're doing the 53-man projection on offense, and then the second part of this podcast is something I teased last week. We've had an intern working for us named Zane Gonzalez, a really smart, studious intern who's very much into analytics as well. Probably more so than you and I even dabble with, Adam. And we've had him doing some research projects on the rookies, specifically the high draft picks, from an analytical standpoint and what they did in college and how that stacks up and what it might tell about their futures in the NFL. So that'll be the second half of this podcast. We'll talk about DeVonta Smith and Landon Dickerson this time, and get into Milton Williams and Zach McPherson on the next one from an analytics standpoint. So looking forward to that. We'll get into it first, as we always tell you. Adam and I have long ago retired from being on the field and having our own heroic sports moments, but we are still winning because we use Deal Dash, the online shopping platform. That is fun. I mean, Deal Dash is the longest running penny auction and app around. Too good to be true? Yes, it is. I've seen a car go for $900, a brand new TV for less than $2. We've seen iPads, speakers, equipment, tools, things that we all use on a day-to-day basis go for about a fifth of the price that they normally go for, and sometimes even more. So don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for the things you want and get on Deal Dash. So you go to dealdash.com or you download the app, and when you register, make sure you use that promo code ITB for a special offer for some bonus free bids. You got to get the bonus free bids. It gets you started right away, and you will have a blast getting stuff for much, much less than you would have to buy it for in retail. All right, so Deal Dash, those are our friends. All right, Adam, let's get into the bulk of this podcast, the 53-man offense projection, and we will start, as we usually do, with quarterback. I think you and I might see this a little bit differently.
Really?
Maybe.
Good.
All right, because so let's get the obvious. Well, why don't we, before we even give names, because we've talked a little bit about learning what Nick Sirianni and his staff looks for in a quarterback, right? I want you to kind of detail what you feel like. You've told me you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of what exactly, how it's broken down. We all know what coaches want in quarterbacks, but there's certain laser focus that we can have. So what do you want to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, what we understand is accuracy is number one. Now, you would think accuracy is number one on every coach in the National Football League who covers coaches quarterbacks or who's calling plays. So that's right up there. But what we had said was, because of this is an old school West Coast offense in terms of thought process and just scheme, you got to be able to get the ball out quickly and accurately. And this is, to me, the number one thing of this offense. They're not. This is. I don't know. This is going to be a big play down the field offense. I think it's going to be a rack offense. I mean, run after the catch. Progression reading is going to be big on here. The knock on Hurts, and I don't think it's super legit, is that he didn't go through his progressions a lot in college. We heard the same thing about Justin Herbert. It's not the quarterback's problem. It's what the guy was asked to do.
Right.
It doesn't mean he can't do it up here. So I don't see that as a big deal. The issue, though, is accuracy. We've talked to a lot of people in the National Football League about this subject with this particular quarterback, going back to his college days where he was at Oklahoma and Alabama. It's an issue. Now, is it a major issue? No, but the tape shows it's not just the number. I know at Oklahoma he got knocked around a lot. I understand that. That for that season he was there. Offensive line problems, that's certainly a factor. But the bottom line is, actually needs to be better. Our friend Merrill Reese, who came on our interview 2 weeks ago, talked about it, that he was told to throw away the football last season if no one was open.
Right.
Good point. Fine point. But the bottom line is he's got to be more accurate. That's a fact.
Absolutely. In fact, I treat Jalen Hurts with a clean slate. Like, for example, those 4 games, you have to use them if you're the coaching staff to do some kind of evaluation. But you also have to understand, and I'm sure the coaching staff did, that was not exactly a very clean environment for any quarterback to succeed, whether it was Carson or Jalen. So like you're saying, the throwing away, that contributes to a low completion percentage, but it's the right thing to do. All right. But there were times that Greg Cosell was on with us, and we would break down tape together, and he would say, here, this guy was the number 1 target. He was taken out. Here's the number 2, and the number 3 develops, but Jalen didn't see number 3. Now, again, very little time. This is the stuff that you hope to see this year, where he can see that second and third route develop and be able to hit that receiver in stride. I look forward to seeing if he can do it or not. Again, to me, he's a clean slate. I'm not holding any. I don't care what the college offense was like, because as Greg always tells us, maybe he was asked to run. Exactly. He ran 200 times more than Kyler Murray. So that either means he's a running quarterback or he was coached to just throw it or run. We have no idea. So it's a clean slate for me. It's an open book.
Yeah, I like the clean slate one. I think that's fair because we should also point out, look at the offensive line he played with. Man, the Washington
which
games.
One?
And I'm sorry?
It's like which one? He played with like 5 different ones.
Right. So Geoff makes a great point. They're starting over here. New coaching staff. They didn't coach him. This offensive staff, for the most part, obviously, we're talking about the guys who are actually going to coach him day to day. So, and obviously the quarterback coach, he's known him since he's a little kid. So, Brian Johnson. So we'll see. I'm pretty optimistic here. I really am. I like that note that Jason Avant had on Q&A about his intelligence, the testing that he did. Apparently, his recall was really good. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that'll be good because he has to learn this new offense. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So he's unquestionably the number 1 quarterback on the depth chart, no matter what the team tries to say.
Exactly.
Joe Flacco is unquestionably the backup quarterback, no matter what the team wants to say. I think you have on yours, right? And we kind of like powwow together on this, but you feel like right now, if you were to do your 53 man, that Nick Mullins doesn't make it. And that's where I'm not sure, because this is a unique situation. The Eagles really, I can't think of a third string quarterback that the Eagles have had in the last few years. Well, Chip had what? Barkley, and he had Trent Edwards at one point, who had some starts in the league. I just can't remember a guy as a third string quarterback who started most of the games for his team the year before, which is what Nick Mullins did. And he's young. So knowing how this organization has talked, and especially recently, Adam, about valuing the quarterback position and always wanting to develop, and knowing that Flacco is probably just a 1-year thing and that Nick maybe has the opportunity to become the backup quarterback of the future, that if you waive this guy, you're then going to, at the end of camp, you're going to leave another team vulnerable to picking him up, and there might be some quarterback injuries. So
fair point. Yep.
I do agree that theoretically they would only want to keep 2 and not have to occupy another roster spot. But there might be something about Nick Mullins that they feel is worth hanging on to have that third quarterback, because he's not an old guy and he's not a rookie free agent. He's a guy who's played in this league quite a bit for a third string quarterback.
Right. Because when he was signed as an undrafted free agent in 2017, the word around the league was this guy doesn't have it. He doesn't throw the ball very well. Doesn't have a very good arm. And you got to give Kyle Shanahan credit. Kyle Shanahan really developed this kid. He's only 26 years old. That's not old a quarterback at all. And he was a good story. Look, I know he played poorly against the Eagles. He got benched in that game, but the kid is a very accurate quarterback. You'd point out in the former show, he might be accurate, but he's thrown a bunch of picks. That is absolutely true. That's a fact.
Yes, he did. Yep.
But he's a good processor. He's a decent athlete, not a great athlete, but he can move. Now, he's not a big guy. He's just under 6'1". He's not going to wow you with like a big physical presence like Flacco is, but he can process well. And you and I are told that's real big here with this offense is accuracy and processing, the ability to go through progression. So this kid's shown he can do it. Sometimes they get to him and he can't. He struggled mentally a little bit last year. But I agree that he's shown enough in his career to be a third quarterback. But I don't see them keeping 3. Now, on your point, we're doing this in June. Okay, today is June 21st. Over 2 months from now, as you said, if there are a bunch of quarterbacks hurt in the NFL, or the Eagles don't feel like they need to keep 5 receivers, or they think they're in good shape, they could afford to keep them, that changes the narrative. But right now, I don't see any way they would keep 3 quarterbacks unless a couple things would happen.
Yeah, no, I do, again, think that makes more sense, that they would only want to keep 2. And I'm not trying to turn Nick Mullins into Joe Montana here by any stretch of the means. And to clarify, when I said he's not a rookie free agent, he was a few years ago. I just mean if you compared him to like Jamie Newman now, who was a rookie free agent and had a bigger bridge to gap there.
Sure.
He's not like which coach brought in Matt Nordgren? Remember, from Texas? He was the backup to Vince Young to compete for a spot.
Oh God, I don't know.
I do remember that. That's another blast from the past. Matt Nordgren.
Wait, was he here?
Yeah, he was an Eagles camp bot arm for 1 year. Yep.
I don't even remember that. Okay.
And let me tell you something. That kid had some bravado about him. He was like, he thought he was making this team. What year is this?
Let's see.
So if he was Vince Young's backup And Vince Young got drafted in what, 2000 and God,
6
my
or 7.
memory.
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Yeah, so we're talking about 8, 9, maybe, like something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, Matt Nordgren. I think it was, Matt Nordgren. Google it. Matt Nordgren, Nordgren Eagles.
Man, you really have a good memory.
We'll ask Les Bowen about him.
What's that?
It was hard not to remember him, only because he was so confident in his abilities.
Wow.
And he kind of convinced us all, like, well, maybe he's really good and just got stuck behind one of the best college quarterbacks of his time.
He's no Matt McGloin, but anyway.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, no Matt McGloin. So that'll close the book. Very, very likely that the only 2 quarterbacks are Hurts and Flacco. I'm just leaving the door open a little bit for Mullins because of the organization.
Sure.
Running back. Our running backs. This is interesting.
This is an interesting one. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Well, we know Miles Sanders is going to make it. And then after that, it's a big question mark. Do you think Jordan Howard and Kerryon Johnson will both make this team?
I struggle with this one. I really struggled with this one because let me tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Gainwell is not a lot, but he should make it. He would have to have a terrible training camp because he's got value as a kickoff returner.
Right.
And special teams returns have been an absolute abomination for this team for years. So, to me, I think he makes it. Jordan Howard, you and I have heard that Howard looked really good in OTAs. His weight's down. He looked really good. He looked way better than he did last year when the Eagles picked him up from Miami.
Right.
Kerryon Johnson needs to pick up his performance. We've heard needed to look a little better. Maybe I don't know. I mean, he was cut by the Lions, so he wasn't with the Eagles a long time. And they weren't doing any teamwork. They only did 1-on-1s and no 11-11, 7-on-7. So it's hard to really evaluate these players strongly. But from what you and I have heard is that he needs to pick up his performance a little bit.
Okay.
He's such a good pass protector. For now, I'm putting him on the team. Again, we're doing this in late June. Geoff has called this is the too early 53-man projection. We reserve the right to change our mind. Boston Scott to me, it's going to be between Boston Scott and Kerryon Johnson. Johnson's a much better pass protector, and that's got tremendous value. He's also been a starting running back. That's got more value. We know what Boston Scott kind of is. To me, Kenny Gainwell could be that changeup. That's why right now I'm going with Kerryon Johnson.
Okay. But you're going with Howard and Kerryon Johnson.
Yeah,
right?
go with 4 for now. Yeah,
I just can't. For some reason, really? I can't bring myself to think that both.
We're not even close on this. Looking the same way. Okay, well, who are you cutting?
And I can't. For now, I'm going to pick a player. I'm going to pick Jordan Howard to stay and Kerryon Johnson to go. Now, my issue is, I think if both guys are healthy, both guys are in shape, everything's fine, everything's good. I think Kerryon Johnson is more naturally talented than Jordan Howard. I think he catches the ball better. I think he's obviously very good in pass protection, although so is Jordan Howard. But I think he's just a better overall runner. He's a higher draft pick. I mean, he's probably a better athlete even with the injuries. But Jordan Howard's been here. As bad as he was last year, he found his way back onto the team, and now he's back again. I think Jordan Howard kind of enters camp in the lead, and it's up to Kerryon Johnson to, as you said, he's got to pick it up a little bit and really show that he can trump Jordan Howard. Right now, I'm giving the slight edge to Jordan Howard, but I'm not seeing both of these guys on the team together.
Okay. All right.
I could be wrong. Look wrong. I would see, so I could see Sanders, Howard, Gainwell. And then you have to ask yourself, do you definitely keep a 4? I mean, that's where Boston Scott would come in. Or do you go, do you have your practice squad running backs? Do we know the rules again yet for practice squad? Are you allowed to have veterans on them?
I'm pretty certain that they're going to be the same as last year.
See, you may be able to slide one of these 2 veterans, Howard or Johnson, onto your veteran practice squad list, because I don't know that anybody's going to be chomping at the bit to go sign them after camp. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I would say this. The 100,000% they will have a running back on the practice squad. Every team has to. They actually may have 2. To me, Killins, no way. Holyfield, no way. Huntley, no way. In terms of being on the 53, I don't know if any of them get on the practice squad. Boston Scott would be a practice squad type of guy, I think, if he's released.
Yeah, he could be, right.
Based on the rules of last year, and they all are eligible for it.
Right.
Now, one little addendum to this is this before we get to receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Training camp, it's open for anyone to have a great training camp. Remember, these guys didn't have an offseason last year. So let's say Huntley, because he's explosive, shocks us and has a great training camp. Then that plays into Boston Scott's definitely out of here. And then Howard or Kerryon Johnson could be out here. Kerryon Johnson has one thing that he's got over Jordan Howard. He's a way better pass protector. It's not close.
Mm-hmm.
Kerryon Johnson is one of the best pass protecting backs.
Yes.
My Lions guy told me he's exceptional at it.
Yep.
And that now, was he overdrafted as a second-round pick? Okay, maybe so.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe so. Maybe shouldn't have been. It's somewhat of an injury history, but he's definitely had one with a knee issue at the NFL level. He didn't look the same last season.
All right, let me paint a scenario for you that might feed into my logic here. Let's say Kenny Gainwell has a really nice camp, and he's definitely making the team. So you've got Miles, you got Kenny Gainwell, and you have a role for Kenny Gainwell. He's not going to run the whole ball between the tackles a lot. We know that, but we're going to get him involved in the passing game, right? Kenny Gainwell gets hurt in the middle of a game, has to come out. Who's going to be that third down change-up type of back between Jordan Howard and Kerryon Johnson if those were your only two alternatives?
Kerryon Johnson is somewhere around 210, I believe.
And he does catch the ball well, but not in the same way where he lines up like Gainwell, right?
Right, exactly. You're 100% right. He's not a slot. He's not going to play the slot,
right?
Because Gainwell, you could line him up in the slot if you want. In fact, they line Gainwell up at X receiver. So in college at Memphis, I don't know that they value that like you and I might. This is like the extreme. Like Boston Scott could have done it. Maybe he would kind of fit in for that. We kind of know who he is as a running back. He could be a changeup.
I mean, we do know that both of these coaches have, whether it's Nyheim Hines or whether it's Austin Eckler, have incorporated those type of guys. I just feel like Boston can be a poor man's version of that if Kenny were not ready or got hurt or whatever. Whereas you're not getting that out of the veterans.
Well, and that's a practice squad player right there to me. That's the way I would look at that. Yep.
All right, that's fair. But you also get special teams out of Boston Scott, so I think you have to kind of consider that as well.
Yeah. Yes, coverage, and he could also return. Now he's not vested, so if they cut him, he would be waived. So we'll see. That'll be a great competition training camp. That is one of the best in the football team behind Sanders.
Definitely. All right, let's get to wide receiver, which is another area where we know about this coaching staff. They have certain priorities, and every coaching staff does, but we know what they're going to be looking for. Break down what we know the Eagles will be looking for now from wide receivers.
All right. So to me, is ability to process in terms of what you're being asked to do and run the correct route.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we were talking about being precise with this West Coast offense. You have to win versus the coverage.
Right.
And if they're running option routes, you got to be in the right place. If it's site adjustment, you got to run the right route. You got to be you got to be in the simpatico with Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the good thing is that though the Eagles and Broncos are the two youngest receiver corps, the Eagles don't have a lot of experience, but they can run. Like we crushed them 2 years ago. They were like running in mud. The receivers were slow. They were very slow. Well, Rager could fly, Smith could fly, Watkins could fly, Hightower could fly. Now, obviously, they're not all going to make it. Right. Greg Ward is not fast, but he gets open. So the good thing is they have speed. And then also, you got to be able to block. That's part of – we don't talk about that a lot, but I know that you have to be able to block at wide receiver. You got to give effort. Something we're going to be talking about more as we learn more is when we talk about the lack of maturity with some of the receivers last year, just carrying out your assignment well, just do it. Part of it is blocking for the run game. Part of Sanders' struggles it wasn't just the offensive line being hurt. Yes, that was a big part of it, no question.
Right.
Receivers have to block better for the run game. They did not block very well for the run game, for what we understand.
So you're hitting on some key points, right? It's not just about your physical attributes, but you have to have a good football IQ to appeal to this coaching staff, because as we brought to light about a month and a half ago, and actually we didn't, Jason Avant did, so credit to him, is that he had heard that site adjustment routes were going to be a big part of this offense. Then it's up to the quarterback and the wide receiver to be on the same page. And so you got to be smart. You got to know the playbook. You got to understand the leverages that you're being played against by the defense so that you can make the best move. And for all that to happen, you have to be smart and on the same page. And the one thing we've discussed, Adam, is that's not an issue with DeVonta Smith. It's not an issue for Jalen Reagor. It's not. I don't even think football intelligence is an issue for Fulgham as far as, we talked about maturity, but not foot FBI. But when you get to the bottom, the Watkinses and the John Hightowers, those guys have to be really keyed in. They've got to know everything because they're getting looked at right now like it's up to you guys got to win a job here. Somebody reached out to us on Twitter after Andrew DeCecco did a story on InsideTheBirds.com. And on his kind of job battles list, he listed everyone and gave an idea of who he thought would prevail. And he felt that Hightower could be on the outside looking in, which is something we've talked about, right?
Oh, he's not on my 53. I had him off 2 months ago. Yeah,
right. And someone responded that why are we making such a big deal over what Quez Watkins did in one game and not what Hightower did over? And this is not even about what they did. It's about who they are right now, right? And how they've appealed to the coaching staff.
Correct. So, look, they're in a position because they don't have any veterans on the roster. I mean, I wanted to put only 4 on it. They're 4 locks. Smith, Reagor, Fulgham, and Ward are definitely making it. Mm-hmm. I struggle with a 5th guy. I mean, look, the light could go on for Hightower or Thiego-Whiteside or Watkins. I'm sure anything's capable of happening. We know that. Never say never.
Right.
Our Thiego-Whiteside's shown nothing for 2 years.
Yeah.
Now, he does give them size and a physical style of play, which some of the other guys are not known for, and gives him a little bit of an edge, but he's on the outside looking in. He's got, to me, he's a long shot to make it. He's got to prove himself. He needs to have the training camp of his life. This is his 3rd training camp, and he needs to stay healthy. We know he's had some minor injuries, but he's got to show that he has value, and he doesn't really have special teams value, so
right,
it's going to be hard for him to make it.
I think that's why you and I tend to feel that Watkins, it's not that he's produced anything, but he's younger, he's more explosive, he can be an attribute, I believe, or an asset on special teams. I guess it's a small sample size. Hightower got on the field a lot early, but Hightower dropped passes. It's not you're summing this up great. It's 3 choices that you can question them all. So, but we also know these are bottom roster wide receivers, and little things like special teams are going to make a bigger difference. And we're also have the right to change our mind. But as of right now, yeah, I would probably tend to think Watkins would be the leader of the 3.
I would agree. And I'll tell you, and you said it earlier before we move to tight end, football, the functional football intelligence, which is FBI, Smith, Reagor, Fulgham, Ward are high. Fulgham, what he did last year, to assimilate like he did, you don't leave the NFL in receiving yards for 4 weeks if you don't have a high football IQ. I'm sorry, you can't.
Right.
The guy's been cut 3 times. Like, you can't make this thing up.
Right.
To do this like he did is pretty special. I understand. We outlined this since last November, his challenges. He needs to grow up a little bit. You can't just come in 75% of the time and bring it. You got to bring it all the time, and you've got to handle the struggles sometimes when you're not doing well. Or the Alshon Jeffrey situation, you got to handle it better. It's nothing that he doesn't know. They coach him up hard here from what we're told. So it's just when you're young, it's consistency that you look for from practice to practice and game to game. And training camp, we're going to learn so much. I cannot wait because we didn't learn much in OTAs because they didn't practice. They didn't have real practices because they weren't doing 7-on-7, 11-on-11s.
No doubt. No doubt. So that'll be a really interesting competition at camp. Move on to tight end, Dallas Goedert. Well, first of all, before I get into the names, I think maybe you and I actually agree on this. Although we have kind of gone back and forth on whether or not we think Zach Ertz will be on the team or won't or makes sense or doesn't. When I do my 53, I don't have him because I've been pretty consistent. I don't see him being on the 53. Not that I can't be wrong, but I don't have him. And do you?
Nope, I've got Goddard, Rodgers, and Stoll. Same as we've felt all season. These be the 3 guys.
Yeah,
we had a feeling Richard Rodgers would be back.
Yep,
I didn't know it would be now though. It was a minor surprise to me that they signed him in June. I thought it would be in August or late or right around the 27th of July and that week. So it happened now. Big deal. Right. Stoll Stoll's, for what we understand from a mental standpoint, he was terrific in OTAs. But again, until they have real competition, until they put the pads on, have 11 on 11s, have 7 on 7s, we still can't say for sure he'll be the 3, but he's absolutely the leader in the clubhouse for that.
I would agree with that. Goddard, Richard Rodgers, Stoll, and then all of the group of the other guys, I think will be really decent practice squad candidates, developmental. I really hope that just because I like the story, I really hope Tyree Jackson shows enough that he's able to make the practice squad and develop and becomes kind of a cool story of development, like a Logan Ryan or like a
Logan Thomas.
I'm sorry, Logan Thomas or a Mo Alley Cox, who is a basketball player. In this case, this is more like Logan because he's a quarterback turned tight end. But I just think it would be pretty cool, especially with that height and in length.
Yep, and it took Logan Thomas years to get it.
Yes,
bounced from a bunch of teams. So, folks, just assume that he's a long shot even to be on the practice squad, Tyree Jackson. But he's a great kid. Mm-hmm. He's smart to understand, you know what, you're not going to make as a quarterback. You have awful accuracy. Mm-hmm. You've got great size. He's really tall. And
definitely,
this is something Howie Roseman has stressed for really over a decade, is that they want to find that former, whether it's a basketball player or someone who's got length who could change positions to tight end. He's been on the prowl for this, to find that type of player.
Right.
And who knows? We'll see.
We will see. All right, we got the offensive line to get to. First, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code ITB when you sign up, and you can turn $1 into $100 in free credits. That's right, turn $1 into $100 in free credits just by using that promo code ITB when you sign up for the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. All right, there are so many offensive linemen, but this is actually not going to take too long, right? Because we can kind of give you, 80% of it right off the start. You got your center, Jason Kelce. You got your 2 guards and Brandon Brooks and Isaac Seumalo. You've got left tackle, right tackle. Well, let me say it. You got right tackle, Lane Johnson.
Let's go back.
You want to do position? All right.
Yep. Kelce and Dickerson are your centers.
That's 2.
Right. Now, obviously, Seumalo could play center. Herbert could play center. We don't know much about Dickerson yet. We just don't. He hasn't, he's not the point that he's practicing yet. So we'll see if he'll be ready, for the season. We assume he will be, but we don't know 100% for sure. Mm-hmm. And we know that he's going to be cross-trained for center and guard, but we'll see if he'll be this backup center. We don't know that yet, and nobody does. So we're gonna find out in training camp.
Gotcha. So Brooks, Seumalo at guard. You mentioned Nate Herbig. Of course, Sua Opeta will be given a shot, on the outside looking in, most likely. At left tackle, Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillard. I mean, that's the highlight of the camp. Yep. And I would still like to think, as we sit here today, that whoever loses can still be a valuable backup on this team, that they don't have to be traded or moved or anything like that.
Mailata's not going anywhere. Oh, no chance.
Yes, I was really referring more to Dillard, but you're right. Yeah. You're right. You could put Mailata in.
There's less than zero chance Dillard, even if Mailata loses the job, which I highly doubt, but if he does, he'll be the backup right tackle, left tackle. That will be decided. That's exactly what would happen.
Right.
That's about now. One thing I do want to mention at guard. Okay, which I didn't mention. I mean, there are other guys there. I don't see Matt Pryor being on the team. Jack Driscoll could play guard, but right now they see him as a tackle. We said a year ago at this time he needed to get fill out physically. The kid Pierschbacher, who was with the with Washington, drafted by them. I mean, he's on the team. He could push for a job. Okay, the Raven Clark. Obviously, he's going to start training camp on PUP. He has to. He's come back from a torn Achilles. It won't be healed. If it is healed by late August, that's the earliest it would be healed and ready to go. So, but he could come off at any time if he's ready in early August, and he comes off PUP. But they have to start him on that because once training camp starts, you cannot put him on it. He has to start training camp on it.
Right.
So he's another guy to keep an eye on.
Now, what happens if he's on PUP for almost all of camp? And let's say he's on PUP all of camp, and he can't practice.
Which could be.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there a way? What happens if the season starts and he never practiced? He never came off PUP. Can they then go on? He can then go on what? Injured reserve 6 weeks?
No. What you would do is They have 2 choices. Either stays on PUP,
right,
which becomes reserve PUP, and he misses 6 weeks.
Right.
Or they take him off it if they think he could go back with the 6 weeks. There's a little bit of a gamesmanship. You got to rely on we had the issue with Jeffrey last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he come back later than 6 weeks?
No, because don't you get the first few weeks to practice? Like he didn't come back earlier. We thought he was going to come back earlier. He wound up taking the full amount of time, which is you're out for 6 weeks, then you're active onto the roster, but you still get two. You have to you make a decision on 2 or 3 weeks whether you become fully active or not.
Yeah, you're back for week 10, right? But what I'm saying is, but you could come back for the 7th. You could. I've seen situations where the guy's absolutely ready after the 6th week, and the guy plays the 7th week.
Right. So I'm just wondering here for LaRaven Clark, if the Eagles have a really good camp as far as health, and they're able to get 8 or 9 offensive linemen that they want without having Clark practice at all, and they're really cool with their 9 offensive linemen, do they go into do they hold on to Clark and keep him on PUP to give themselves 6 weeks to make sure that they don't have any other injuries on the offensive? It's almost like carrying a player without occupying the roster spot because you can.
Well, right now he counts to start training camp.
Right now he does.
Camp, it counts as the 90 on the 90-man roster. He counts actually against the roster. Reserve PUP, right? Reserve PUP. You do not in season. That's the difference.
Right.
But again, he must start the training camp on PUP. He cannot go on it once camp starts under any circumstance. That's
correct.
The rule.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they deal with him.
Yep.
And because he tore his was it Achilles?
December, the first week of December last year.
Late. Yeah. He tore it pretty late. So I'd be shocked if he's rearing to go July 26th or 27th when training camp begins.
That would be an absolute upset. I mean, it'd be great for the Eagles. Wow. Wouldn't they love that? But that would be a surprise.
I would even be surprised if he was ready to go by week 1. So
I'm with you on that. We're working on finding out exactly where he's at. But look, Brandon Brooks is an anomaly. Come back from Achilles injuries, guys, it's incredible. But we'll see. Where the Raven Clark's a guy that they love his versatility because he can play right tackle, left tackle, and guard, and obviously Sirianni knows him, so that's why he's here.
Right. All right. So give me your too early 53 on the offensive line here. How many are making it? You got the 4 starters. Who's winning left tackle?
Let me just do it this way, so we could get out of here and move to the analytics stuff, which we're looking forward to doing. 2 centers, 4 guards is 6. Brooks, Seumalo, Herbig, Opeta 6. 2 left tackles is 8. Jack Driscoll and Lane Johnson is 10. I'm probably going to put LaRaven Clark on reserve PUP. And again, you can't put him in reserve PUP now if you have to wait till training camp. To me, now, could Suapeta be cut? Yes. You and I, by the way, we should mention this. You and I had said we had heard that Herbig lost 30 pounds. It's legit. He's under 240, where he wasn't even close to that. Excuse me, under 340. He was very grossly heavy last season. I don't know what. I'm not saying 400 pounds, but he's way up there. It's not like he's super tall, but he got the message, and I give the kid credit. He's under 340. We know that. I mean, I don't think he'll ever be 310 as an NFL player. Right. But this is a good story. Good for him to do that.
I'm with you on this, but I'm cutting Opeta. I have a hard time seeing Opeta make it because their backups are more versatile now than they have in the past. Dickerson can, if healthy, can be center guard. We know that Herbig can be center guard. We know that Dillard can be tackle. They'll probably try to cross-train him at right if he loses out of left. Who knows how that'll go? But Driscoll can play right tackle. So I feel like they have all the backup positions covered fairly well, even without Opeta. And so you might be able to get Opeta back on the practice squad. If not, you've got Luke Juriga from last year, who you can probably have on the practice squad and bring up if you need an interior offensive lineman. He got in a game. Didn't Luke Juriga play?
Well, I know everybody did. I don't remember. I know someone will point out to us if they did, but I don't remember. But look, it's going to be, to me, 9 or 10. I agree with what you said. You're probably right. Because Driscoll is definitely a right tackle who could be cross-trained to guard because he's done it before. He just needs to get stronger. Herbig could play guard and center. Did it Yeoman's job last year, but the weight had to come down, which it has. So look, now here's the other thing. if they think Dickerson is ready, now I don't know that he's going to be, but if they think he's ready for the regular season, that really helps with numbers.
Yeah.
Then they definitely will only keep 8 or 9 because he could play center and guard.
Right.
But that's a lot to ask. I don't know how much practice time he's going to get, if at all, in training camp. I have no idea.
It's a fascinating point. We're going to get into him a little bit on the analytics series, but I mean, what a story. I mean, he went to Florida State to be tackle. He wasn't athletic enough to be tackle. Then he wound up transferring to Oklahoma, obviously, played guard, then had to play center. I mean, this guy has quite a story, and he can do a lot of things. And I really hope he's healthy, because some of the things that we've heard about him, how much of a monster he is when he's out there competing, I can't wait to see it.
Absolute animal.
It kind of reminds me of like another John Runyon type of guy, just a complete animal. Well, Thomas was an animal too, but this guy's an interior guy. Yeah.
Right. So Landon Dickerson's a better athlete than, not that he's a great athlete, but he's a better athlete than Runyon.
Right.
But this guy is an absolute ass kicker.
Yep.
Attitude guy. Look, you never have to worry about DeVonta Smith and Landon Dickerson. They're Alabama players.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of commitment to excellence, this is what you get with Alabama players. And for the life of me, I don't understand. We talked about this after the draft and how long it had been since they not had a player. We're talking about drafted a player. Don't confuse us. Some people were confused. Oh, they had DJ Fluke, they had Fluker, but we said, folks, we never talked about Fluker being drafted by the Eagles. He wasn't. We're talking about drafted players.
Right.
And I just don't understand how that's possible, that they went 2 decades without drafting an Alabama, almost 2 decades.
Yes. Yeah? Now, some contrarian out there will be like, "Oh, not every Alabama player," and they'll bring up a Reuben Foster or Orlando McClain. Sure. I mean, there have been a couple of guys who have.
By the way, they're damn good football players.
Oh, they were great football players.
Field stuff.
Yeah.
But this group, these kids, oh my God, so serious about football.
Yes.
And there's nothing in their background suggests there'll ever be any issues.
Not at all. Not at all. All right, let's get in. So we're kind of in agreement. I mean, like, I'm not going to sit here and argue Sua Opeta for 10 more minutes with you. I wasn't very impressed when he was out there, but then again, I wasn't impressed with anybody last year. So
I can't.
He'll have a chance.
Yeah. It'll be, as we said, it is going to be a very interesting training camp, because there are a lot of jobs open. There's a lot we don't know about this football team. We're still trying to learn about this coaching staff. Mm-hmm. They're new to this market. Sirianni's a new play caller, so we think we know, but we really won't know for sure until we see it. So it's cool. There's a lot of unknown here. It's going to be fun.
All right, cool. Make sure you're checking out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all of the Philadelphia professional sports teams. Doing a great job. They've got podcasts you can listen to, but make sure you go to their website, PHLSportsNation.com, and they are for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. You can find them on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation is their Twitter handle. Also, we'll pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. All right, if you do go into Sky Motor Cars, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get the deal of a century. Trust me on it. Go talk to them, especially if you're trading in a car and you're looking for the most money. There you go. All right, so let's start our analytics series here. This is fascinating, and I'm glad we had our intern, Zane Gonzalez, a good Penn State kid, help us out with this and do some of the research, and he's privy to some areas of analytics that I'm not, and I don't know if you are. So some of this stuff was new to me. So I want to thank him first for the hard work that he's put in to helping us with this. And I know some people bristle at analytics, but you know what? Adam and I are going to sit here and just kind of take numbers and make sense of it, and not try to bog people down with too much, right?
Analytics, so just to give you an idea, just want to crowbar one thing in here. Analytics is about what the eye cannot see. That's the best way to describe analytics. Analytics are important because coaching tape, yes, is true serum, but you want to know let's say for quarterback, how's this guy throwing to his left? How's he throwing to his right?
Right.
What is this guy against man coverage? What is this guy against zone coverage? That's important. There's no way you would know that watching a game. You can't track that, but that's what analytics gives you, and it's very important to know this stuff. Yeah. Any coach that doesn't want it should be fired. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Even the guys that I know who are not analytics proponents use PFF. They love it, PFF. Right. Even if they say they don't like analytics, they like PFF because it gives them stuff they cannot judge just by watching tape.
Absolutely. So there's a statistic called the college dominator percentage. And what it basically describes is how much of an individual's offense is a part of the team's offense. It's a percentage based off total yards of offense generated by a single player.
Gotcha.
And when we talk about DeVonta Smith, the 6 foot, 174-pound wide receiver out of Alabama, 22 years old, what everybody needs to know as far as a baseline is, if you are a wide receiver who has a 45% number as far as that's your college dominator number, 45% of the offense, that's good for a top of the line wide receiver.
Yeah. Wow.
DeVonta Smith was 51.3% of the offense. So he was fairly high over the what's considered top of the line for a wide receiver. And the fact that he does it at Alabama, which has a lot of other, I know Jalen Waddle is hurt for the year, but they do have a pretty darn good running back in Najee Harris. They have a quarterback. They have other weapons as well. But that just goes to show you, whereas I know there's concern over his size and how he can hold up, but playing at the SEC, playing at Alabama, to me, it illustrates that he can be that kind of possession receiver that we haven't really seen the Eagles have in quite a while. A guy who can at least get 8 to 11 targets per game, catch 7 to 9 passes. Maybe some games he has a great game and catches more. But to give you an example, Najee Harris, who I brought up from Alabama, his college dominator percentage was 30.9. And think about the amazing year he had. He was a first-round pick.
Sure.
DeVonta's was 51.3. So you're almost talking about a 20% higher clip for DeVonta Smith. And that's harder because you're a wide receiver. Somebody's got to get the ball to you as opposed to just putting it in your hands.
Right. And actually 3 or 4 things to add here. Smith is definitely not a possession receiver. Now, he could run after the catch. But as you're saying, though, he's going to get a lot of targets because he gets open. Like the word that we got
is... Wait, did you think I'm stigmatizing possession receiver? Because I think that there are possession receivers like DeAndre Hopkins will catch 8 or 9 passes a game.
He is a possession plus receiver. Like he's not what you call deep threat, but you can use him on as a deep threat somewhat because he just gets open.
Yeah.
Smith is so explosive. Now Waddle, Greg Cosell says is more explosive, and that's fine. Waddle, by the way, got hurt in the playoff game. He dislocated and fractured his ankle. So it's not like he missed the entire year.
Sure? I thought Smith was the one who came out of the playoff game with his finger hurt. I thought Waddle missed several games. No,
Waddle dislocated his ankle. Fairly certain in the playoff game.
I thought it was earlier in the year. I'll check this while you go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. Well, I know the injury because
I know it was an ankle. Yeah,
it was bad. No, I know exactly what it was because it was similar to Dak Prescott's, but Waddle's was not an open fracture. That was the only difference between his, and that's why he's back earlier. But Smith is just so gifted, and he's so serious. There's a lot to like about him. You can move him around. The Eagles are more. I'm going to take Sirianni's word because this is what I heard from a Colts source. He doesn't really talk X, Y, and Z. He's about inside and outside receivers. So we're not going to talk X and Z anymore because that's based on what I'd heard from someone who worked with him with the Colts. So we're just going to talk about, because we know, listen, last year, folks, Fulgham played every position. He moved. He played X. He played slot. Greg Cosell told us this. We know Rager can do it because he did it. We know Smith can do it. The only guy who could Greg Ward play on the outside? Sure, if he had to. But we know he's not going to win. He's a slot receiver. That's what he is. But the other guys could be moved around.
Gotcha. By the way, Jalen Waddle got hurt in October, so he definitely did not get hurt in the playoffs. Yeah. He missed a significant amount of the season for that. And that's why that is why DeVonta Smith.
Did he not play in the playoff game? He didn't play in the playoff game.
Yeah,
right?
He was out for the year. Yeah, he did not. Yeah. But he missed a significant part of the season. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
So but that's what turned DeVonta Smith into the number one guy there and why his targets were so high. No, I didn't. Well, I wasn't trying to stigmatize him when I said he could be a possession receiver. Well, I guess what I meant to say is I think he will be the receiver on the Eagles if he's doing well and fine that gets the most targets per game. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was in an 8, 9, 10 range because of all the ways that you can line him up and do things with him and how sure-handed he is and how reliable he was. For example, as we look at let's compare him to some other players, right? With his 51.3% of college dominator.
Wow.
His teammate, Jerry Jeudy, his last year at Alabama, 25.1%. Now he had to share it with Ruggs. KJ Hamler, who was the Penn State's main deep threat 2 years ago, 31.7. And not just main deep threat, he was their main receiver at Penn State. DeVonta Adams at Fresno State, who was really the offense when he was there, right? Fresno State, isn't that where DeVonta Adams went?
Correct.
Right,
yep.
40.7%. So even he at Fresno State, where he's like their only legit NFL receiver, doesn't even come close, really. 40.7 to compared to 51.3. DeAndre Hopkins, 39.3. Beckham, Odell, 34.5. Julio, 34.4.
Is this hang on one sec? Is this DeVonta, the 51.3? Is that his entire career or just this past season?
Just this past year.
Okay,
51.3.
Okay.
Yeah. So he clearly
that's based on the numbers you just read. That is a dominating. Now I get your point. I know you don't mean a possession receiver.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say he's a slow guy, like or
no, but he can do the short area. Right, he can do the short area. Slants are going to be big with him. He could do the deep stuff. Obviously, this kid is super gifted. He's got good hands. He's serious. There's a lot to love about this kid.
All right. Moving on with him. So his yards per reception in college, his last year, was kind of tricky to understand until you put it in perspective. He averaged 15.9 yards per catch, which was in the 65th percentile. So it's not like amazing. It's not terrible. It's pretty good. But when you take into account, this is unbelievable, Adam. He led college football in screen catches and screen yards, along with deep catches and deep yards, right? Think about the versatility of that. And that you could see how if he wasn't such a great screen weapon, how his yards per catch, he'd probably be up in the 90th percentile because he led college football in deep catches and deep yards, but he was such a good screen weapon.
Wow.
And it should be noted that their screens were not like the type where you have all the offensive linemen kicking out. They were mostly bubble screens. So you got to make one guy miss, and he was very good at doing that.
Yeah, so what I would add is he benefited from Waddle only playing 6 games because Waddle was fantastic.
Yeah.
He had over 21 yards per catch. He only played 6 games because of the ankle fracture, but he was phenomenal. So Smith obviously was targeted way more than they expected because of Waddle being out.
Right.
So that would play in it. But the numbers are just amazing. Wow. He's this kid, it's funny. When the Eagles traded up with Carolina, traded up with wait, who did they make the trade up with to get
Denver? No, not Denver. They traded up with
right.
No, Dallas. Dallas is who they wound up.
Dallas. Dallas did it, and the Giants traded up because of it. Right, they traded with Dallas. I was sort of like, man, they're trading up for a receiver. Okay, 2 years in a row, they're going with a first-round pick. But with these numbers that you've just given us, now I'm starting to think. I know the tape was very good, but these numbers are so giant. I'm like, wow, holy smokes.
Right. Now, here's another fascinating stat that we'll close the book on DeVonta with. One of the issues that I think fans always had with Deshaun was, as great as he was not a guy who was going to show up in the red zone very much because of his slight build. Now, DeVonta had 19 touchdowns last year. 8 of them came from 20 plus or more yards. All right, the quarterback was 15 of 28 and throwing 20 or plus yards touchdowns to him. From 10 to 19 yards, he also had 8 touchdowns. That's pretty good.
Really good.
From 10 to 19 yards. He had as many touchdowns in the red zone. Actually, he had more because from 1 to 9 yards, he only had 3 touchdowns. So you can see how he's not going to get the ball a whole lot when you're at the goal line or, from 1 to 10. But from 10 to 19, 8 touchdowns is the same number as he had as deep touchdowns. And the accuracy was great on those, 31 of 41 attempts.
That's because it's interesting. So I was talking to a coach who was at his pro day. Now I know he didn't work out, but I guess he must have seen him without a shirt on. He says, for a guy who's 6 foot 170, he's pretty solidly built. Like you wouldn't think he was that thin, and that may play into what you just gave: the 10 to 19 yards, 8 touchdowns, caught 31 of 41 targets. That's amazing that he actually had that many targets.
Right.
What a year he had. I'm so intrigued with him. Everything we had heard about him had been great, but these numbers give it even a broader context of how special this kid is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so to finish it off, one thing that stood out is that Zane did the player comp. He tried to get as many comps on DeVonta Smith as possible for the NFL level. And the two that really kept popping up And they're not going to always be apples to apples. I know someone's going to say, well, this guy's bigger, or this guy's faster, whatever. But was Stephon Diggs, who that's kind of that possession plus receiver. I mean, he's explosive. You wouldn't just call him a possession receiver.
Everything.
But he catches like 8 to 10 passes a game for sometimes more for the Bills. Yeah.
He is the NFL's best route runner. He is I mean, him and Hopkins, but I've had coaches tell me that they think that Diggs is actually on tape a better route runner. Mm-hmm. Bottom line is, Diggs is a great football player. Not very good. He's great.
Yep.
And Smith is a little bit taller than Diggs, but I cannot wait to man, you got me all excited for fantasy. Actually, you know what?
You never know.
Without knowing this stuff, you've got me so excited about these numbers, folks. This is good stuff.
Right. So the other two names that came up, Adam, one will not be unfamiliar to us because we've reported. I reported hearing this from a AFC source that Marvin Harrison is the guy that they felt DeVonta Smith kind of profiled very similarly to. And the other one is, and this I see it, Deontay Johnson. Now, if Deontay Johnson didn't have an issue with the hands, he'd probably be a top 10, top 5 receiver. He's that good. He just drops way too many passes, but he's a good wide receiver. Probably better than people realize, but he has an issue this past year with drops, so that knocked him down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Deontay Johnson is pretty elite as far as skill set, like route running, football info. He's a really good receiver. If he catches, 75% of the balls thrown his way next year, he's going to be an all-pro.
Deontay Johnson, his nickname was Deontay Dropson.
Yeah.
he might have set an NFL record for drops, but he got open so much.
He gets open.
Man, and he could line it. He's another move him all around, run after the catch. He's bigger physically, way bigger than Smith. But I'll tell you what, these are some pretty good comps. When you comp him Stephon Diggs, Stephon Diggs is one of the top 5 receivers in the National Football League. Now, let's just don't put any pressure on him. Just let this, because
sure,
I've learned my lesson on the Hank Baskett. I understand Hank Baskett was not drafted, but what happens is just let it happen. Because what happened with Hank Baskett was, this is a long time ago. I guess Smith is a first-round pick, and this kid was not drafted, but Baskett was so phenomenal. Just let it happen with DeVonta Smith. He's probably going to be really good, and you should be very excited about him. The Eagles obviously did the right thing for trading up to get him, but let him do what Jeff just outlined. All his attributes, which are just off the hook, incredible, even way more than we even knew about.
Yeah,
anyone knew about. But this is let his performance just describe and what he's going to be as a football player. It should be really good, but let it happen first.
Excellent. Last thing, he was 14th in slot receptions with 46 and 5th in college football with 863 slot yards. So Alabama made a concerted effort to get him inside, partly because also, as Zane notes in his research, that he did struggle with contact releases, like when the corners would get their hands on him and he was not at his best. He is good. He notes that when he can get a release without contact on the outside, just by using a stutter step or whatever technique that he uses. But when someone gets their hands on him, as you can imagine, for a guy who's 6 foot 180, then they have a chance, or 170, they can redirect him.
Yeah.
All right, Land. Yeah.
I just want to say one thing. He definitely has to put mass on his arms, because his releases are going to be the key. This is where Aaron Moorhead, the coach, and Sirianni and Kevin Patullo, they got to make sure he works on his releases off the line. That's what releases mean. This is something that is absolutely drilled in training camp. And you go to any training camp, they're talking about it all the time. Coaches are about the releases and good. They'll say good release, better. They'll say, hey, they'll coach him up on the releases.
Right.
But this kid, if he tears it up in training camp, which I expect him to do very well, we'll see how much he plays in the preseason. That'll be a good indicator. But the regular season is next, though. Remember, training camp, AAA baseball, Major Leagues is the regular season. If he could hit the fastball in training camp, there's a pretty good, and preseason, a pretty good chance he's going to be really good.
There you go. All right, moving on to Landon Dickerson. We'll finish it up here. I think what stands out about this is that the guy had 331 run blocking snaps and 385 pass blocking snaps, which shows you a very balanced Alabama offense. And the fact that this guy comes, how often do we talk about, take Andre Dillard, for an example, coming out of Washington State, where he plays in not with his hand in the dirt, so he lacks that experience. Didn't face a whole lot of bull rushers in the Pac-10, lacks that experience. So you come out of college and you need a lot of work in certain parts of your game because you did not have that in college. But that's the opposite when you take a guy like Landon Dickerson, who almost an equal amount of run and pass blocks in a pro-style offense and has seen not only the different in snaps, but also in different positions. He actually didn't play center until the 5th game of his junior year because he had started off again as a tackle and then moved to guard. So he's played all 3 positions. He has blocked well in the run game and blocked well in the pass game. Better run blocker right now than a pass blocker, Adam, which doesn't surprise you.
Which is usually for interior guys the case, not always,
right.
But usually.
Right.
He's got the ideal size. He's a little bit bigger than you would want probably at center.
Yes.
Usually you'll take it. I mean, if he's got long enough arms, you'll take it. Obviously, you want that more than you don't want it. Mm-hmm. But he's just got abnormal size, length for interior position. But he's an absolute ass kicker. So serious about his job. Fans are going to absolutely love him. The challenge is to stay healthy. But these numbers that you're going to be going over just pretty remarkable to me.
Yeah, definitely. Now, his pass blocking was good. In fact, he had allowed just 1 sack in his last year at Alabama and just 2 hits and 2 hurries. Now, that sounds good, but think about this. The year before, he was blocking for one of the more athletic quarterbacks in football in Tua. Then he has to block for Mac Jones, who's going to stand in that pocket and not move around. So that shows you that even though that there was a change in quarterback to a more of a guy who moves inside the pocket instead of outside the pocket, that Dickerson didn't drop off at all. In fact, that's an amazing year, 1 sack on 385 pass block snaps. So that's pretty darn good right there.
Well, a couple things here. He measured at his pro day 6'5.5", 333, big hands, 10.3 ace, good arm length for an interior lineman, 33.25. Mm-hmm. That would be just decent enough as a left tackle. You would probably want a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. But for a center or a guard, really good. Wingspan, very good, 81 1/8. This is all good. Like this is good, man. I just know that had he not had the injuries, I'm not joking when I say this, and typically you don't say this as a guard center. He was going in the top 15 without the injury history, but he has it. I get it.
Right.
Can't take that away. He has it. He's come back yet another serious injury. So, you hope that the guy has a long career, but that's something the Eagles are going to have to live with, and it's on them. You drafted a guy that's got a major injury history, so it's not like they don't know it. He's coming back from a left ACL injury this time. Hopefully he stays healthy, but the kid is super gifted.
Definitely. I want to finish it off with these last 2 things because I've argued before. I can almost see them wanting to play him at guard instead of center. His PFF run blocking grade was 92.8. We have our qualms sometimes with PFF, but this is specifically just on run blocking itself. And he had 14 big time blocks, and that's the most since 2014, according to PFF. And what a big time block, Adam, it's which is a PFF only type of stat. It's when the guard or the lineman makes the block that created the space for the running back. So let's say you have a left guard, he pulls on a sweep out to the right, and he just wipes out the linebacker, and the running back went right, and there's no linebacker in his way. That's credited for Landon. That would be credited for the guard who is pulling there for the big time blocks. So we had 14 of those and 16 pancake blocks. I mean, this guy is an animal.
I told you
just 16 guys flattened.
I mean, you hear personnel people just they're blown away by like this kid. Like, he's kind of like might have been Brian Balder who just said, I can't remember, who talked about Quentin Nelson as a comp just because he's dominant.
Right.
He's one of the most dominant. This kid, in terms of just tape, Quentin Nelson type of dominance. The PFF numbers are awesome. That big time block stat's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Pancake block, very cool as well. And by the way, I got to give PFF credit. They learned that they needed to hire former coaches, and they have some guys on their staff who are really good at their job.
Definitely,
they have a lot of really good guys who really know how to grade offensive line. So this stuff is real. Their D-line grades are great. People in the NFL rave about their ability to come with these grades. So they've done a great job of improving on what needed to improve. I give them credit for that.
All right, and I'll finish it off by saying this is why I wonder if when you're that much of a monster at the guard position, why you would want that guy to play center, which can be a help position. You really want your guards to be your main primary run blockers, and if this guy's that much of an animal, I feel like you might want him at guard. But we're a long way from there. He's got to get on the field first and play. They have a starting five already that he's not yet a part. But I do have a heart. If he's healthy, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. We've talked about different packages, whether it's goal line or 13 personnel, where they may find, jumbo. Sure. You might want to get him on the field just to get a little added beef and see what he can do. I look forward to that. I think they will if he's healthy.
Yeah, look, it's going to be fascinating because at the very least, I shouldn't say very least because we just don't know where he's as a health concern.
Right.
But if he is healthy, early in September, and they think he looks good enough to dress every week, how great would it be if he's their top backup guard center? Like, how great would that be?
Ideal. That's what you want. That's why you drafted him that high in the second round.
Right.
So
right.
All right, good. I had fun. Thanks again to Zane Gonzalez for putting all that together. Next podcast, we will focus on the third and fourth round pick. This worked out perfectly. The first two guys were offensive guys. The next two guys are defensive guys, and that's Milton Williams and Zach McPherson. So thank you, Zane. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check him out on Twitter @Broads81. Check out his website, broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.